It's Chloe and Amy, and it's day 28 of Project 15.
Today we're reading from Mark chapter 15 about the crucifixion.
Pause now.
G'day teenagers. Well, we have come to the moment of Jesus' crucifixion. And you'll have to forgive me here because I'm going to be a little bit graphic as we speak today. But in Jesus' day, there was no humane way to execute somebody. People would be executed sometimes in the most excruciating and vile way. And have you ever heard the word excruciating before? That word excruciating actually comes from the Latin word which means out of the cross. So when people were trying to think about what is a way to describe the most painful emotion or the most painful feeling, they came up with the word excruciating because they thought about the cross of Jesus and the pain that he took. And as we reflect on today's story, I want you to think about the fact that here is Jesus, here is God who's going through this. This is not a normal man. This is not a person who's committed any crime. He's going through this. And in Jesus' day, when you were sentenced to be crucified, crucifixion was the worst form of execution in Jesus' day. It was only reserved for the worst of criminals. Roman citizens could not be crucified unless they committed treason. That's how serious a crucifixion was. They didn't give it to any random criminal. It was for the worst of the worst. And it says that Jesus was led away. And notice the guards, they mock him and they ridicule him. They put a robe on him, a purple robe. Purple was the royal color. Kings would wear it, emperors would wear it. And they mock him and they laugh at him and they spit at him and they hit him and they beat him up. And they think about this, they take a crown, they weave together these thorns and they bash it into his head. Think about how painful this would be. The idea of a crucifixion was to inflict as much torture on a person for as long as possible before they died. And then notice, again, a crowd, a mob follows Jesus along as he's going through the cross. Now in Jesus' day, mobs, whenever a person was executed, mobs and crowds would follow them. It was a public celebration. It was a public festival almost when somebody was executed. The crowds would just follow. That's how inhumane this act is. And Jesus, they would make criminals, crucified victims, carry the cross all the way from the city to the outside of the city. And Jesus has been so badly beaten up that he can't even carry the cross any further. So they have to conscript somebody from the outside to help him. And then notice that they take him up to a place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. This was a particular point outside the city of Jerusalem where they would crucify people. Today we call it Calvary. The purpose of doing this is that when the Romans crucified or executed somebody, they didn't just want to kill the person, but they wanted to show the whole world, don't commit crimes. It was a way of deterring people from committing crimes. So if you crucify somebody outside the city walls, the point is as people are passing by, they will see this person and they will see the crime that they have committed nailed to the cross, and they would say, I don't want to commit that same crime. And then notice, members of the public, the religious teachers, they are mocking him. They are ridiculing him. They are scoffing at him. You saved others. You did all of these miracles. Save yourself. If you're truly God, if you're truly the Messiah, come down and save yourself. And they crucify him with two other criminals, one on his left and one on his right. And notice in verse 23, it says that they offered him wine drugged with myrrh, but he refused it. Often passers-by would take pity on crucified victims. So what they would do is they would give them this concoction, wine mixed with myrrh. It was basically a poisonous substance to make them to hasten death. But notice Jesus doesn't drink it. He takes the punishment. He doesn't back away from this. He doesn't try to get out of it. He takes the punishment. And Jesus has done that for you and I. Now, the way a crucified victim would actually die is the Romans would hammer nails into their wrists and into their feet. And the purpose was to hold them up. And what would actually happen, you'd have your legs slightly bent. And what you'd have to do is you'd have to push up You'd have to push up in order to breathe. And the idea is your scourged back, the nails driven into your wrists would be so painful that you'd keep trying to push up. And eventually, through sheer pain, you would eventually just give up. And with so much exhaustion, you'd eventually just pass out and you would die from asphyxiation. That was the purpose of crucifixion. Now, we've been extremely detailed today. And I want you just to take this in. Why is God himself going through this excruciating punishment? Brothers and sisters, he's doing it for us. Instead of us dying for our own sins, instead of us spending all eternity separated from God, Jesus came into this world to take the punishment that I deserved and you deserved. And now, because of him, you and I can be in a relationship with God. And one day when we die, Jesus will be waiting for us in heaven. And we'll be reunited with God the Father, God the Son, and God the Spirit for all eternity. God bless you, teenagers, and we'll see you next time.